The opening few notes of John Williams' famous Harry Potter theme conjure images of sorcery, adventure, friendship, and strange, defecating horsebirds. Yes, that was in there for God only knows what reason, yet it's always been the franchise's attention to detail that completely sold the wizarding world of Harry Potter to a net worth of nearly $8 billion.
Didn't think your mom and dad would leave you with nothing though, did you?
Author J.K. Rowling's initial book series exploded into a world phenomenon that was followed by a succession of blockbuster movies, monster guides, spin-offs, stage productions, theme park attractions, video games, websites, conventions, fan fiction/fiction, butterbeer, clothes, toy lines, stuffed towels, magic wands, magic wand underwear, toilet lids, condoms, and band vibrating brooms, to name a few. Today marks the 16th anniversary of the US wide release of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, my first introduction to the Potter franchise. How could I forget when all the ads kept touting that the magic begins November 16th, which also happens to be my birthday? My answer? Damn right it did. Yet when I received a strange assortment of owl postal worker toys as presents, well, I just had to find out more about the film that so strangely influenced my birthday. From that point on, I was a fan, and to celebrate Harry's Sweet 16, we've decided to tackle the top 5 Harry Potter fan debates by forming our own Potter-inspired trio, featuring a primary book fan, writer and editor for People.com, Jen Juneau, a casual film book fan, yours truly, and a regular co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash, who's only seen the movies. Hello and welcome to Default Assault. I am your host, Demosthenes, and with us today is our special guest star, Jen Juneau. She's probably the biggest Harry Potter fan I know. Jen, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to do this. So as we mentioned earlier, we will be covering the top 5 craziest Harry Potter debates, and we're going to give you the definitive answer. Richard Harris, unfortunately passed away, was replaced by Michael Gambon. There's quite a bit of a split in the fan base between the two, but I'm going to start with you, Jen. I'm very, very curious about your opinion with this one.
Well, I'm going to show you.
That sums it up.
That's my opinion. I really liked Richard Harris a lot. He kind of embodied to me the way book Dumbledore was, which was like a kind of like a little, wise old man who you wouldn't really suspect of anything strange or unusual unless you got really close and saw, the twinkle in his eye and the weird London Underground map on his knee and kind of, his weird glasses and his weird pocket watch. Like he just, the point of Dumbledore when you meet him in the books is kind of, there's something special about this guy, but he's also, he could just be your grandfather or something. Richard Harris, like a lot of people have criticisms for his portrayal that are valid. Like he's a little bit older and slower than you would think Dumbledore would be, especially later in the books once things really start getting stirred up. But I feel like he embodied how you were supposed to feel around that character. But yeah, I feel like Michael Gambon was too, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me, I would have to look at the article, but that I read years ago, but I'm pretty sure he didn't read any source material before starting. Obviously he read the script, but I don't think he was really familiar with the character. I've heard he's been rude to fans. I don't know all this for sure. These are just rumors that I remember hearing.
I'm not sure about the fan rudeness, but I do remember reading in various sources where he admitted that he hadn't read the books, and it makes sense if you see how he acts differently between movies based on what the script tells him to do.
Yeah, and the thing is, and you don't have to read all the books to star in a movie adaptation, but at least watch the first couple of movies. Or read the first damn chapter of the series. You learn his demeanor in the first chapter of the series. So really, I feel like he could have done more there. Or I should say done less. He did enough.
He needed to dumble more. That's
Nah.
The unfair thing is that Richard Harris did such a solid job while he was on. And here comes Michael Gambon. Look, dude, It's the axiom of I have to follow that. Really, that's where it's tough off the bat. So what I asked myself to really kind of answer this question of who I thought was better is who could have done the other part just as well, right? Richard Harris was the grandfatherly type. Then when he passed away and couldn't finish the job, the question is asked, could he have been wartime Dumbledore? Whereas Michael Gambon, could he have been Grandpa Dumbledore? I think either one was superior at the portion of the character that they picked up. Granted, I don't have the books of source material, so I don't know quite as well. But I would give the nod to Harris being superior, as while he may not have been wartime Dumbledore quite as well as Gambon, there's no way he could have been Grandpa Dumbledore as good as Richard Harris. It just wasn't going to happen.
There was one thing that I really loved about Harris's performance, and yes, he did have a little bit of a frailty to him, especially in Chamber of Secrets, but that could have been because of his health. So I'm going to kind of brush that a little aside. I will say that he was soft spoken but powerful. You felt his presence whenever he entered a room. Gambon, to me, felt more in line with somebody more like he's playing this powerful wizard. He's more along the lines of like a Gandalf or so forth, but much louder.
Everyone will proceed to their dormitories immediately. Harry Potter!
Wait a minute, Demos. I don't believe I thought of this before. His problem is he's trying to be Gandalf. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Why gotta hate Jen?
How can I keep up with these puns? I'm gonna have to brainstorm.
What do you guys think is the best and worst Harry Potter book or movie?
I have a favorite, which is Deathly Hallows, just because it wraps everything up really nicely. And I feel like a lot of people criticize that book because they do a lot of camping in the book, which is true. But I mean, you look at other works that are like considered really epic stories, like Lord of the Rings or something like that, which isn't really my cup of tea, but I can appreciate that it's like a really good work of literature, just because of the way that like he crafts the world. And I think Harry Potter, especially that book, is a little bit different in the sense that it uses magic as more of like a story tool rather than like a story. It's like the foundation of the series in a way, but it doesn't move the story. Like the point of Harry Potter, at the end of the day, like the big themes that you take from it are, I would say, love, trust, and like vulnerability. And I feel like Deathly Hallows shows that the most, because it shows like sort of where these three characters have grown from, you know, the time they were 11 years old, and, you know, they've grown into like basically adults by the time the seventh book rolls around. For me, it's just a personal preference. Like there's so many good installments in the series. Like I think I like the first couple books more than most people do. I think I like Prisoner of Azkaban less than most people do, even though I enjoy it. I would say my least favorite, not the worst quality, but I think my least favorite is probably Order of the Phoenix, because it's just so long and I feel like she probably could have cut a lot of it out.
Your preference when it comes to the book series, does that translate to the films as well? Is Deathly Hallows your favorite and Order of the Phoenix the least?
You know, I would say as far as like a movie, the first couple movies are probably my favorite, just because they're the truest to the books, and they I just really liked Chris Columbus's like directing style. Like he went more for story and character interaction and making the audience feel really connected to the source material more so than he did the artistic liberties. So I came in and began reading the books after I saw the first two movies. So I kind of had that beginning as like, ooh, this is great. And I read the books and like, man, this is, you know, they're really close to the movies. And then the first movie I saw after reading its book first was Prisoner of Azkaban, which was like worlds different. Like, you know, Alfonso Cuarón came in and he was like, I think I'll make this tree wave for like 45 seconds. And I think I'll put the kids in sweaters and jeans. And I think I'll make this werewolf look like a chihuahua.
You know, it's interesting. Jen mentions for the Deathly Hallows that the biggest critique of the book is that they went camping a lot. The problem with the movies was splitting Deathly Hallows into two of them. And the first one was where they did most of the camping. So cinematically speaking, you're watching, emo kids fight about each other in a tragic situation while on a scavenger hunt. It doesn't really make for a great movie. It's not that it was a bad movie. It just wasn't the best of the series. Now, I'm probably going to say something that'll tick everybody off, but hey, I'm not your typical Potter guy here. I thought the best movie was The Goblet of Fire. Just the element of the Triwizard Tournament and all that in play. Cedric was getting the press for once instead of Potter, and that was the whole thing. Hey, who put the paper in the cup to get Harry Potter into the tournament? All the stuff that happened there, the other schools coming in, getting them involved was intriguing to me. As much as, you have to expect some of the teenage drama going on, that whole thing where Hermione it goes to the ball with somebody who's not Ronald Weasley. Oh my God, right? All that stuff was intriguing, and there were other individual characters that were good. I kind of like the Cedric as the champion, air quotes, quarterback character.
Where he wasn't sparkling?
That wasn't sparkling, most importantly, yes. Anyways, he wasn't a vampire, so he could sparkle all he wanted. Anyways, so that being said, they also had added in characters that you're supposed to love to hate, and I forget her name, but the air quotes journalist being in there basically as an allegory to what media is today, which I'm finding humorously relevant to somebody who's competing with ESPN right now personally. Her rendition of what she was doing to Potter in the press, in the Daily Prophet, in the movie, isn't far off to a lot of the stuff you see happening in sports journalism today. So it was that was just fun for me to watch personally.
For me, it's actually kind of strange. My favorite books and as compared to the movies are strangely inverse. My favorite book was Half-Blood Prince. I loved it, and all the elements that I loved about the book, the film, I felt were missing. The entire backstory of Voldemort, setting everything up. The movie barely touched on it. Somebody did a fantastic edit on YouTube where they basically took many of the scenes from Half-Blood Prince and turned it into a trailer for a romantic comedy. And yeah, that's pretty much how I felt the movie played out. On the other hand, Order of the Phoenix was, I felt, the weakest book for a lot of the reasons that Jen said earlier. It was overlong. A lot of subplots were there that dragged quite a bit. I understand what she was trying to do, but they dragged quite a bit. And yet the movie, very wisely, was the only one that had a different screenwriter than the other movies. Cut out all the fat and made it very streamlined, made it a very effective film. Technically speaking, though, I think that Azkaban may be the best. It definitely has the best film score. John Williams outdid himself in that film. This is one that I've actually puzzled over quite a bit. I've over the years I've actually kind of gone back and forth on this, but it's all about everybody's favorite dark professor, Severus Snape. Snape's defection specifically, or his faux defection. Was it worth it? And did he actually achieve something significant by doing so? Jen, maybe you can fill us in a little bit about your perspective on this from the books.
I have a weird opinion about Snape. Like, I don't dislike him. I don't like him. I feel like he's also a really flawed character that has a lot of layers to him. But at the end of the day, he's just like a dude who was heartbroken, and like he was really in love with Harry's mom, and then he was like, I'm going to treat you like crap, which like I get from a psychological standpoint, but not from like a 38-year-old dude standpoint. You know what I mean? Like it's been like 17 years, bro. Like you got to move on, at least as far as like treating this kid like, in an abused way. Like I don't know, like that part just still rubs me the wrong way to the point where I can't be like, oh, well, he like helped save the Wizarding World. Like, yeah, a lot of people did. And, like,
do you think that a lot of the love for Snape comes from Alan Rickman's performance?
Yes, I do, actually. And he was fantastic. Like he was probably him. I would say Alan Rickman and Maggie Smith were probably like, and Robbie Coltrane were like the best cast characters in my opinion. But
agreed.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of it is like a little bit of like fangirling based on just like the culture surrounding the idea of Snape more than the character itself, if that makes sense. Which is totally fine. Like I've been there in lots of fandoms myself.
You know, look, everything Jed said about Snape is absolutely spot on. This is a complicated character. This is a dude that dealt with a lot. The aspect I would bring to this table is it's not just Harry getting rejected by Harry Potter's mom or being bullied by Harry Potter's dad or anything like that that forms it. Oh, sure, that's a lot of it. But the 38-year-old dude that you mentioned there is channeling that to train Potter to do what it is he's supposed to do. Because Snape, as talented as he is, has a vision for somebody and what they should be capable of when they're the chosen one like Harry Potter. And it's great that he has a philosophical mentor like Dumbledore to carry him through a lot of the mental trials. But what I would, and you know, call me on this if I'm wrong, Jen, but the truth is what I see, he's that coach that you expect more in like an athletic setting, all right? I got the hell verbally and mentally beaten out of me by some of my football coaches, and I feel like that Snape was the equivalent of that. So he's going to make damn sure that no matter how uninterested he is in that class, that he's at least competent in what he's tasked with teaching him. And I feel like he's channeling that bitter to be as hard on that student as he can. Because there's a number of scenes, and I don't remember the movie precisely, but when the children are threatened and he's with them, he puts his body in front of them to protect them. And I don't, this isn't just as simple as bitterness and treating the kid this way. I think it's to get something out of him.
I think the consequence and like what comes out of the way that Snape behaves toward Harry is what you're saying. Like it strengthens him and it makes him realize that there are people out there who are not on his side. And it keeps him more humble than it may have without that. But I do not think Snape did it on purpose. I think Snape treated him badly based on like pure hatred that he sees like James in Harry, and that's the reason that he did it. But you're right, like he was like very protective, but that's because he loved Harry's mother, you know, like at least in my opinion. I think the kind of like hard love that you're talking about, like the coach type love, is I would say that I saw that in like Mad Eye Moody a lot more than Snape. He was very hard on Harry and like the rest, and Ron especially. And I mean, granted, like it was Barty Crouch Jr. and Goblet of Fire, but you even see that personality manifesting in like the real Moody in the last, 3 books. Right. And I would argue that that sort of thing could have been accomplished without the kind of like real hatred that this man had for this kid because he saw Harry's dad in Harry.
Yeah, I can agree with that because of the 2 characters, I can see Mad Eye wearing a jersey.
Me too.
I have a similar take to you two. Maybe not as extreme. I mean, I understand what they did with the character. I understand that the importance of him killing Dumbledore for the Elder Wand to not, for it to eventually get to Harry's allegiance. And I understand that, him being in charge of the school under Voldemort means a little bit more safety for the kids, and somebody, one of the other Dark Lords was in there, and I understand what he did to help as far as the sword, the Gryffindor sword, getting that to Harry. But at the same time, I felt like the problem I have with the way that was resolved is seeing all that potential built up through 7 films. And then not seeing him really do something a little bit more pivotal. What I'm saying at the end is that Snape was not this isolated heroic hero. He was really just part of the team, and that was his part to play. But I don't think that he's as grand as a lot of people have built him up to be. Although I can understand it because once again, Alan Rickman. I mean, he's in my opinion, he's the best part. I mean, I agree. Smith and Coltrane, right up there with you, 100%. Those 3 are the best. But Alan Rickman just has this extra unfortunately, had this extra layer of gravitas.
And it's not like he hasn't done that before. Can I take you back to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where he's Sheriff of Nottingham and carries the movie? Can I take you over to Dogma?
Die Hard?
Well, oh yeah, well, Die Hard. I mean, he is the main villain there. He's not. That's the thing, though. Well, he's the main villain in Prince of Thieves too. But yeah, of course, Hans Gruber. Duh. If you don't know that, go home, take the rock off your head, and see the rest of the world. It's a very bright place. Okay.
Is Neville Longbottom the real hero of the series?
So what you're trying to tell me is that Harry Potter is Inspector Gadget. Is that it? Okay. And Neville is his dog Brain. It's actually the one that solves all the cases, and Potter's just some bumbling doofus that's there for the fun of it.
As long as Alan Rickman plays Penny, I'm all for this.
I mean, like, just nice. Really? That was okay. I'm gonna have to try to move on from that image. But look, Neville Longbottom, I mean, with the pedigree and all that, one could definitely write a theory and or fanfic and or essay on how he actually is the chosen one. But no, let's not be ridiculous here. He didn't ever actually have to directly tangle with Voldemort that I'm aware of. But I can't. The Neville Longbottom character is so perfectly executed in the movies, in my mind, because for one, and I know Jen will back me on this, though I'm not as passionate about this topic maybe as she is, he goes from being, he's a flabby little girly child, to being pretty buff in a picture and able to kind of,
he's buff. Yeah,
I don't know what to do with that. Like, I was always big and awesome, so I don't know what that transition is. But, he fits the part physically in the movie. As for the character, any hero of Potter's caliber needs a supporting cast, and no, I don't just mean Ron and Hermione. I mean beyond that. Yeah, I know, right? That's not a thing without the Lunas, without the Nevilles, without all the other cats that are down in there. They're doing stuff. I mean, there's plenty of like, I can even draw the same theory to Game of Thrones, to so many other series where you have the super guy and you have the second tier, but somebody's got to be the damn Onion Knight.
Well, my favorite quote in the whole series was too long for me to get a tattoo, so I ended up choosing my second favorite. But my favorite quote in the series is from Dumbledore, and it's in the second book, and he says, "It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities." And he tells Harry this when Harry is questioning the fact that the Sorting Hat put him in Gryffindor over Slytherin, and Dumbledore is telling Harry, like, oh, you pulled out the sword of Gryffindor from the hat, like only a true Gryffindor can do that. And I really like that quote because I feel like it resonates throughout the book, and especially when Harry learns about the prophecy and how, Neville was almost chosen because he was born July 30th and he was born to parents who thrice defied Voldemort, etc. And I think that the only difference really between Harry and Neville is that choice that Voldemort made. And that's what makes him human, which again is like a great theme throughout the series that I really love, is that it's about magic, but it's not really about magic.
As for me, I cannot argue with that. I can only say this. He did kill Nagini, the last Horcrux, which enabled Harry to defeat Voldemort. Yeah, that's great. That's an accomplishment. But once again, it goes back to what Kyle said, and almost back to what I said earlier about Snape. He is a team player. He is part of this group. His growth as a character is fantastic, and I really appreciate having a side character go from the overlooked buffoon, who shows moments of courage, even in the first movie/novel, to this heroic type. I think it's a good message, and he didn't really do anything tremendous. He wasn't Superman. He didn't fly up or suddenly cast a spell that nobody knew that he could do. It was all heart.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like the most notable thing about Neville really is that he's just like a normal kid, and he has probably a larger growth arc than like most of the other side characters, which is really cool. But that's what makes him stand out, not so much that he's like the hero of the series or anything like that.
The last big controversy that J.K. Rowling kind of brought up out of nowhere when she announced that Harry and Hermione would have been more of an ideal couple than Ron and Hermione.
I have a couple of different ideas about this. Like, I think Ron and Hermione were great together at the time. Like, during their adolescence, it was good that they could feed their energy off of each other because they each needed something that the other one had. Which, for Hermione was someone who was able to kind of live in the moment a little bit more, and Ron needed someone to plan things out so he didn't get killed or have no friends. So they were really good for each other, I think, at the time. But I saw A Cursed Child, and it's funny because I could even see this like in the play. And I don't know if the writer, like if they did this on purpose, but they made Ron like a very just like funny character. Like they just made him a comic relief, which I found like kind of insulting. Like I wasn't huge on the Cursed Child storyline. And I feel like that's a little bit of a detriment. Like it's kind of an insult to Ron as a character because, you know, he's not my favorite character, but he was important to, you know, the story of the trio. And J.K. Rowling said a lot of, I think, what she said about like who Hermione could have been better with as far as it being Harry, because she ended up marrying, J.K. Rowling ended up marrying a Harry. That's what she said. Like her husband Neil is a Harry, personality-wise. And I think I'm biased because I think my husband is a little bit of a Harry and I'm a little bit of a Hermione. So I can relate on that level. I think all three of them are very similar to each other and very different. And I think as the way Hermione matures in life, like she, you know, she wants to kind of take some of the spotlight, I think, as far as like her accomplishments go. Like she becomes Minister for Magic. But that being said, I don't think Hermione had to pick either of them, to be honest.
You know, and Jen alluded to it slightly, but let's just say a union of Harry and Hermione, they would drive each other insane. Okay, it's something about, look, Hermione's independence, while admirable, would also weigh on you heavily if you are the chosen one, because it would get in the way. Hermione's great until you disagree with her. Then you better be ready for conflict, and she's either going to see your way and back down, or it's going to be a problem. And that doesn't serve well, in my opinion, in the romantic music, okay? Whereas Ron, look, while I'm not going to, look, anything saying that Ron is the comic relief is a little strong, it brings the character down quite a bit. I'm not prepared to have as strong an opinion as to say it's an insult to the character. I can see why they did it, but I will say it's a lazy writing move to do that to him. But by the same, like the moment that rings true for me is still in the Sorcerer's Stone. Pure emotion, a kick in the ass that all three characters, well, at least Hermione and Harry needed to move on. Is when he's sitting on the back of that knight on the chessboard saying, "Not me, Harry, not Hermione, you got to go," right?
You did that very well, FYI.
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you. Hey, I could also sing Song the Magnum PI theme, apparently. But anyway, no, that whole thing, that is the reason why he exists. Swift kicks in the ass when you all geniuses and chosen ones aren't getting the simple shit right. He is Dr. John Watson telling Sherlock Holmes what the 9 planets in the solar system are, so he doesn't have to spend 30 minutes trying to remember, okay? That's his role, which makes him perfect for Hermione. He's not a chosen one. He's perfectly happy being the support guy, and so long as he has, you know, loving children and a beautiful wife to come home to at night, all things that might imply, he's going to be as happy as he needs to be, period.
I gotta debate that, because I think it's because you haven't read the books, but in Goblet of, actually this isn't the movie, in Goblet of Fire, okay, first of all, you have to think Ron is the youngest son of 6 sons. Yep. And he is the second youngest of 7 children in general, and Ginny gets a lot of attention because she's the only girl. So basically he's like the most like neglected probably child as far as attention goes, and he has these brothers who have done all of these amazing things, open joke shops. You know, Percy is like this know-it-all, Bill is like this super hot banker dude with a fang earring who marries Avila. Fucking Charlie rankles dragons. Okay, he what he sees in the Mirror of Erised in the first book in the movie is himself being like the big dude. You know, he's won the House Cup, he's like the Quidditch captain, and then in Goblet of Fire he gets pissed because Harry is getting all this attention. Ron wants the spotlight and Harry does not. Like, he's not comfortable with it at all.
Maybe Harry doesn't want it, that's true, but that would mess with Hermione. That's just where I sit. One of 2 things is going to happen. It's going to frustrate her. I mean, look, she doesn't have a huge ego, but as somebody who has an ego, I know how it works. Mm-hmm. She's going to see Harry getting praised again for something he did 20 years ago while she's still busting her butt being the Minister of Magic, and that's going to get in her head. Or she's going to be like, "Damn it, Potter, why aren't you doing more? You were the chosen one. Where the F you at now? I don't care if you don't want it. You owe it to me." And that's going to be a speech that he's going to get. especially for somebody who's sitting as a minister of magic. That would be incredibly frustrating to Hermione, I feel like. Whereas with Ron, again, he's going to get all the support she needs.
Yeah, I think Ron would have to grow up a lot for them to work out long term.
Yeah. And that's something I forgot to touch on too, is he wants the spotlight and the goblet of fire as a youth. As the movies go on, he certainly sheds that and accepts his role. You know, he understands that, okay, look, this is a trio, I'm going to do my part.
In response to what Jen was talking about when it comes to Ron and the way he's depicted in Cursed Child, I 100% agree. He was inconsequential. He could have been absent from the story and nothing would have changed. He's just there to throw out a couple of witty, quote-unquote, lines. Here's the thing, though. I think there's only one movie that actually got his character right, at least the closest to the books, and that was Sorcerer's Stone. And a lot of it leading up to that sacrifice, he had all the qualities. He was funny, but he still had a lot of the qualities that I associate with Ron from the book. And the movie, starting with Chamber of Secrets, Rupert Grint has a very good comedic talent, and they went crazy with it. There wasn't a scene, Chamber of Secrets, it really stood out to me the most. There wasn't a scene where he wasn't putting on a scaredy cry face. That's not the Ron that I knew from the book. From the book's perspective, I can see Hermione and Ron getting together, taking a step back and allowing her to be herself and pursue what she wants. In the movies, I do not see Hermione going with Ron, but I don't see her going with Harry either. Although they did have the two actors did have a little bit more chemistry in the film, so I can see where that comes from. In fact, if anything, if I was going to pair Harry off with any of the other characters, it wouldn't be Ginny, it wouldn't be Cho, it'd be freaking Luna.
Luna, I knew you were gonna say that. Sorry, I got excited.
Those characters,
no, but right?
I loved it when they were together and they're having this conversation. She seemed to be the only one that understood him for everything.
Yeah. Do you remember that scene, like at the end of Order of the Phoenix, when she like lost her things and she's packing up to go home, and he comes and finds her, and she's like telling him like, oh, you know, things, they'll turn up, they always do. I thought at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe Harry and Luna, right? But then in Half-Blood Prince, he and Ginny just get together, and I'm like, I guess.
That was a beautiful moment in Order of the Phoenix. Yeah. And they didn't show too many intimate scenes after that one film. But those two, I mean, just from the actor's perspective and from the character's perspective, they gelled. That should have been, that's the debate. Screw Harry and Hermione. These two are the ones that should have ended up together.
I agree. I like that. And you know what? I like book Harry and Ginny. I really do. Ginny is a much better character in the books, like so much better. Like Kyle, you know a movie Ginny, and like Bonnie Wright is wonderful, but they did the character so dirty in the movies. Like she's so one-dimensional. There's no chemistry. In the book, she's great. Like she's a very like strong female character. She's very like, you know, takes no shit from anybody in like the later books, and her arc is actually really interesting too, even though you don't get to hear quite, maybe you do, like they don't talk about Neville as much in the later books, I think. I mean they do, but not any more than Ginny. But I really liked Half-Blood Prince a lot because they showed a lot of Ginny's character growth. Yeah, I'm
actually looking forward to that now, because you say, oh, you know movie Ginny. No I don't. Nobody knows anything about her because they don't show you anything about her.
It's just, it sucks.
Luna is the definition of the platitude that there's a fine line between genius and insane.
Maybe.
I think so, maybe a little bit. I would say Hermione is more of that because she goes nuts. And you know what? This is another thing I don't think that was in the movie, Kyle, but when you were talking about the chess scene where Ron's all like, you know, I can't do it as good as you, but not me, not Hermione, you. I can't do it. But there's a scene in the book that I don't think is in the movie when they're in the devil snare. And Ron or Hermione's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, I need fire. What am I going to do? And he's like, and Ron's like, are you mad? Like, are you a witch or aren't you? And she's like, oh shit. And she like gets her wand out and like creates fire. But you're right. Like in the moment, she can lose her mind. You know, she's like so focused on the details and the next step that she forgets what's in front of her.
He balances her out. He brings her back down to earth.
You kind of prove my point about Ron and Hermione, don't you?
When they were 11? Yeah.
Hey, that's where it starts, man.
That's where it starts. Does it have to end there,
Well, you know, there are deep roots. You gotta go back to Snape. He's still stuck on the girl of his dreams at 11.
Boom.
Yeah, he needed to get over that. This is a little creepy. So, love you, Alan Rickman.
Well, I had a lot of fun with this. Thank you guys for a great conversation. I think we definitively somewhat answered some of these debates. Jen, thank you for joining us. You're always welcome, especially when it comes to Harry Potter. I can't think of anybody better. So please let everybody know where can we find you.
Well, like Demos said, I'm a writer for people.com. I do a little bit copy editing, but mostly I write for the Babies Vertical and some general news. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Words with Jen. And on People, it's people.com/author/Jen with one N.
Thank you, Jen, for coming on tonight. I'm now going to call myself Kyle. He ain't Ron Nash. Of course, you can find me on Twitter at the SOTG, and of course on Facebook as the Student of the Game.
And of course, you can find me on HilarityByDefault.com for weekly movie reviews. My Twitter account is @DefaultHilarity, and you can find me on Facebook, Hilarity by Default. Well, up until next time, remember, life is hilarious by default.